Colorado head coach Deion Sanders announced that Julian Lewis will not be starting on Saturday. Let's find out why.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the app today. I'm Kevin Borba. Also, we are brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 podcasting network in the business. We're free and available wherever you get your shows, so make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. We're going to be talking about Julian Lewis. He's getting benched, but for a good reason. We're going to be talking about Coach Prime's recruiting mindset, why I still think it's slightly off. It's like we're almost getting the point, but we're not getting the point. And then I'm going to look ahead and talk about this weekend's season finale, or regular season finale. Well, for Colorado, it's a season finale against Kansas State. But let's talk about JuJu Lewis. So he has played pretty well, I would say, in the past 3 weeks. He came in mop-up duty against Arizona through a beautiful pass to Omarion Miller for a deep bomb touchdown. He got starts against West Virginia, and then this past weekend against Arizona State. And the past 2 weeks he's been without both starting tackles, so there's that. Colorado is inept at play caller. They're inept. Their offense is inept. And so besides all that, besides missing two of your best offensive linemen, being in a bad offense and having someone who doesn't know what they're doing calling plays, I think Julian Lewis, by all accounts, did fairly well, right? He showed poise beyond his years. He showed an ability to sort of make something out of nothing. There was quite a few times where he scrambled around and made big throws. And again, I do think that he has that Shedeur Sanders tendency to hold the ball too long at times. And Coach Prime said as much after the latest loss. But I think for the most part, we saw what we needed to see out of Julian Lewis. In his four appearances this year, he threw for 589 yards and 4 touchdowns, completed 55% of his passes with a long pass of 59 yards. He was sacked 12 times in basically 2.5 games. So the offensive line clearly needed some work without Jordan Seaton and Larry Johnson. Obviously, you lose your 2 starting tackles, it's not going to go well. But let's talk about why this is the right decision. So Deion Sanders said today that, hey, I made the decision to bench Julian Lewis, or to not start Julian Lewis. And I'll read you exactly what he said, because I feel like it was a valid point. He said, I've made a decision that JuJu is going to redshirt. That's my decision. I want what's best for the kid, what's best for his family. He also said that JuJu wasn't thrilled with the decision, that he's a competitor, wants to play, but it's best for the kid. It's best for his future, right? And I agree, because honestly, I don't know what Julian Lewis gets out of playing this game on Saturday other than somewhat of an experience, because he's probably not going to have his key offensive line guys again. Kansas State really flipped it up another gear last week against Utah. So they're playing motivated. They're playing hungry. They're looking for their 6th win. And so I think it's the right decision now. But I also think, and this is where I'm really going to veer off into what has been wrong with this team all year long, is had they handled the quarterback situation better at the beginning of the year, we would not be in this position, right? And that's not me saying had they got a Julian Lewis earlier, that's an option. But in a perfect world, Deion Sanders doesn't press the panic button after the Georgia Tech loss week 1, right? I think there was just a lot of confusion. I think people were hoping that Colorado would look better against Georgia Tech, which they lost 27-20. And I mean, Georgia Tech is a solid team. They're possibly a playoff contender now. They have been a playoff contender, but Caden Salter was 17-28 for 159 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for a touchdown and 43 yards. And I just think Colorado got way too jumpy with their quarterback situation. It was like, you know what, we got to make a change. And I think that really messed, honestly, the season up for a lot of different reasons. For starters, you throw in Julian Lewis against Delaware, and at that point in the season, we had seen Julian Lewis play in the spring game. We had seen him in snippets of videos. He wasn't ready. He was not ready at the beginning of the year, and that's okay. But throwing him in against Delaware for no reason, I mean, that was a head scratcher. And it was a head scratcher at that time because he played, I think, 1 or 2 drives. Like, he literally, he was in, he was out, and it was just like, okay, that's That's the Julian Lewis experience. And then they went to Ryan Staub, and then they went back. Like Julian Lewis attempted 4 passes against Delaware, and he had 2 rushes, so for -7 yards. He was 2 for 4 for 8 yards throwing, and then 2 for 7 rushing, or 2 rushes for -7 yards. So he clearly, it just made no sense. And they bench Caden Salter. They go to Ryan Staub for the next game, and then Ryan Staub struggles. And then they go back to Caden Salter, and then it's just like this constant, like at that point, they rode with Caden Salter until the wheels fell off. And it was just like, you should not have thrown Julian Lewis in unless you confidently could say, like, there's a chance he could be our starter. And I think at that point in the season, like the first few weeks of the season, which for Julian Lewis, I think he was still 17 at the time, we knew he wasn't going to be the starter. We knew he was not going to just ascend into the stardom. Like, that was not in the cards for him. That just was not going to happen. But Coach Prime and company were like, you know what? We're going to throw him in here, give him a chance. And like, now you cost yourselves a prime opportunity for him to continue to build, continue to build on his experience, continue to build on the progress that he's made in the past 3 games. And he's going to redshirt, which means he'll be eligible for 4 years. And that's a good development for Colorado, who's running on fumes in terms of good developments. They're not getting many of those these days. But now you need to worry about his future with the program, right? You're redshirting him, which is fine. I think that was probably the plan for him all along, with Caden Salter coming in. Obviously, you didn't expect Caden Salter to kind of flop, but losing Julian Lewis would be a catastrophe. It would be catastrophic. It would be disastrous. It'd be just the worst thing imaginable for Colorado. So if you're Coach Prime, it sounds like JuJu Lewis was kind of frustrated with this decision, based on what he said, Coach Prime, that is. So if you're Coach Prime, you're doing everything in your power to make sure, like, hey, dude, like we know you're good. We know you want to play, but like, you're the future. You're going to start game 1 next year. You're going to be trotting out on the field. We're going to be behind you. We're building this roster around you. Like, you need to reassure Julian Lewis that, like, just because you're not playing this final game doesn't mean it changes anything for us. Like, I hope that Coach Prime is able to get that point across, because next year, week 1, they're at Georgia Tech. And Colorado's first 3 games next year are going to be tough. Not in the sense of like who they're playing. I mean, outside of 1 game, it's an interesting opening slate. They have at Georgia Tech, then they play Weber State at home, and then they're heading to Illinois to take on Northwestern. So Colorado is going to be playing on the road in 2 out of the first 3 weeks. So you want JuJu Lewis to get time to prepare. You want JuJu Lewis to have all this ample opportunity comfortable. And I don't know if playing with majority of these guys this year is going to do much for him, because, I mean, he got some experience, played against tough teams, but it's more, his future is more the priority than the present. And right now, Colorado's not playing for anything other than pride. Coach Prime did say they wanted to play spoiler, but they're not playing for anything. So don't waste a JuJu Lewis game just because, right? Make sure you have him for the foreseeable future. Make sure you keep him happy. Make sure you keep him in Boulder. That's the utmost importance. And just let him know, like, hey, you're our future. We took a risk this year on Caden Salter. It didn't work out, but now we're fully invested in you, and we're going to show you that this offseason. So JuJu Lewis not playing on Saturday. It's going to be Caden Salter, and then Ryan Staub slides into that backup role. I imagine we'll probably see both of them. Caden Salter, this is his last career college football game. I hope it works out for him. I don't really know if I ever thought Caden Salter had NFL experience or NFL potential, but I do think that he had some sort of potential. Now, I think this is sort of maybe he gets an XFL or UFL, whatever they're calling it these days, CFL look. And for Ryan Staub, if he does get in, it's just more film for him to transfer. I assume he's going to transfer. I don't think he wants to be a backup at Colorado for his entire career. And he's shown some flashes. Like, he has shown like he could be a quality group of 5 starter. So I imagine we'll see Salter. I know we're going to see Salter. I imagine we'll see a little bit of Staub if Salter doesn't work out. So that's the latest on Julian Lewis. When we come back, I think Deion Sanders is still missing the point on recruiting, and I don't know why. We're going to talk about that when we come back, though. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. The NBA season's back. Guess what? If you didn't know that, the NBA season is back, and there's no better place to get on the action then FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, so make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 podcasting network in the business. Now let's talk recruiting. I feel like Deion Sanders, he was asked about his 2026 class because early signing day is quite literally in a week, and Colorado is down to 10 recruits. So they're going to have to be making some moves here or there. And Coach Prime today said he wants 15 to 17 guys. If you look at the stats, like half of them are going to leave. So that's why he doesn't want to bring in more. And Josh Newberg of Rivals made a great point, and this is what I've been really saying. He said Jordan Seaton, Michael Welch, Cam Michael, Draylon Miller, the list goes on, Julian Lewis, all impact players from high school. Buffs could have consistently brought in great players from high school level, but instead just don't. You're not finding Jordan Seaton type players in the portal. And Josh is absolutely right, and that's what I've been saying. And I think Deion Sanders is approaching the transfer portal all wrong. I think the transfer portal, I think you go all in on recruiting, because if we go back 2 classes ago now, that would be Jordan Seaton's class. Imagine if Deion Sanders brought in 20 to 25 guys and you have a young core and you just sort of are building those guys up, and you're sort of, they'd be heading into their junior years next year, which is basically, I think, prime for contending. Sophomore, junior year, I feel like is when you see that biggest leap. Freshmen, like you get some star freshmen who are like Jeremiah Smith or Trevor Lawrence or whoever it is, where it's just like those guys got it right away. But for the most part, I would say it's the second and third year when guys take off. And so that's when we'd be seeing those guys. Instead, Coach Prime is dedicated to 30 guys out of the portal and just recruiting a handful of guys here and there. And I'm here to tell you that's not the right method. And I don't understand it. Like, people could say whatever they want. You could say, like, let me just break it down to you this way. If your goal is to win a championship, no one in this era, no one really since ever, I mean, since the transfer portal has been around, no one's come close. And no one in general has won a championship without having a roster of 50%. I think it's 52%. Excuse me. 52% of their roster being blue chip guys, which is 4 or 5 star guys that they recruit. Okay. That remains true to this day. You could say Ohio State brought in transfers, and they did. That's how Colorado should use the portal. Ohio State builds their roster through recruiting, and then they go get key guys here and there where it's like, okay, we need an answer at quarterback, right? They got Will Howard. Or we need an answer, we need another running back, so they got Quinshon Judkins. Or we need a linebacker, so they got, I think it was Sonny Styles was the transfer, right? But Jack Sawyer, JT Tomololo, I believe is how you say his name, they were all homegrown guys. And it's like, you have to understand that going into the portal year in and year out is basically every year your team is boom or bust. It's hard to sustain success when you're bringing in 30 to 40 new guys every year. And Colorado is going to have to bring in a big portal class this year to make up for all the guys that they're losing. I think they had 30-ish guys walk on senior day. Now, not all of them are going to leave, but you have to understand, like, you're going to be banking on these guys just succeeding. And that has not worked. Like, it worked one time. And quite frankly, I think it was because Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders were 2 of the best players in college football. So unless you're getting 2, basically 3 top tier players, because Travis Hunter played both ways, so he counts as 2 players. If you're basically like, you have to guarantee that you're going to get 3 of the top 10 players in college football for your team to win 9 games. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Deion Sanders has shown that he could be a great recruiter. And I'm not saying don't use the transfer portal. Again, I'm saying use the portal to fill holes, not build your roster. Because when you use the portal to build your roster, it leaves you with more holes to fill every single year. And I just don't see the vision. It really hasn't worked to the degree that Coach Prime has hoped. FSU, Florida State, has tried to build through the portal. They haven't done well. The only example of a team that is contending for a title and built through the portal is Indiana. But guess what? Indiana brought 13, 14, I think they brought around 15 guys from James Madison to Kurt Signetti brought them with him, right? Indiana brought in 15 guys who already knew the James Madison way. They knew the Kurt Signetti way. And Kurt Signetti has also had his coaching staff's had a lot of continuity. Whereas Coach Prime, you're bringing in probably, I would assume he's going to clean house, and I would only bring back Gunnar White, and I don't even know if I'd bring back Marshall Faulk. I mean, maybe Marshall Faulk. But for the most part, you should be cleaning house. You at most keep 3 or 4 of your coaches, but you should not be bringing back the same staff. So you're going to have a brand new staff with a bunch of new guys. So you have basically 70 guys, we'll call it 60 guys, 60 new faces trying to figure things out. And had you just bought into recruiting more and found more guys in Jordan Seaton's class and more guys just sort of who could stick around and be that core group of guys, you'd be in a much better position. And the one thing that made me sort of chuckle is this is who Coach Prime mentioned as the team's core: Julian Lewis, Alexander McPherson, London Merritt, Chauncey Gooden, Yaya Atia, Brandon Davis Swain, which are all true or redshirt freshmen. Guess what? Do you notice a theme there? Outside of them all being freshmen, they are guys you recruited. They are guys that you went out into the high school ranks and landed. Yet you keep going away from that. And I don't understand like where the disconnect is, because if you're telling me like, yeah, like if there was a lot of, I guess, proof of like, hey, the more transfers we bring in, the more wins we get. Like if there was proof, I would be like all in, baby, go for it. But right now, in the 2 seasons, or 2 out of your seasons, you're sub 500, which the first year, obviously, Coach Prime wanted to revamp that class, but that would have been the perfect time to first year is all transfers, and they brought in a pretty big recruiting class. And then next year, the following year is when you bring in even more recruits. Like he just did not set himself up to succeed for the future. And right now, I don't feel like he's wanting to put in the effort necessary to build a roster. I think he wants a quick fix, and I don't think there is a quick fix for Colorado. And that's going to be really the defining moment of Deion Sanders' tenure in Boulder is he wants a quick fix by bringing in all these transfer portal guys. And guess what? That's not possible. We've seen it. It is not possible for Colorado to just go automatically from sub 500 to great consistently, because in 2 out of 3 years, you have not really been that good, and you've built entirely through the portal. So very interesting method there. We'll see if it works again this year. I mean, it could be hit or miss. Like I'm not denying that there won't be years where you'll find the right guys, but this year where you have so many changes on the coaching staff, or presumed changes on the coaching staff, and so many roster additions and subtractions, I find it difficult to believe that it's just going to be a flawless transition. When we come back, I'm going to look ahead and talk about this Kansas State game, because it is an interesting one, but it's one that Colorado are heavy underdogs in. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. We're part of the Locked on Podcast Network. If you didn't know, the #1 sports podcasting network out in the industry. Let's talk Kansas State, Colorado. So I'm looking at the odds right now, and it's not looking good. It's not looking good. Kansas State is 16.5-point favorites, which I think is the biggest. I think that's the biggest line that Colorado's been a part of for this season, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even think Utah was that big, which Utah, granted, they had a backup quarterback situation, so there was a little bit of murkiness there. But Kansas State is projected to absolutely dog walk Colorado, and I'll give you the reasons why. For starters, they've sort of figured things out lately. They've won 3 out of their last 5, and they kind of blew out TCU. They blew out Kansas. They played Texas Tech tough. They beat Oklahoma State, and then they pushed number 12 Utah to the brink this past week. It was a dogfight, if I'm being completely honest. It was a classic Big 12 shootout, honestly. Utah ended up winning 51-47, but Kansas State, they had control of that game. They were up 47-35 in the fourth quarter. And so it took Utah a huge effort from Devin Dampier to sort of turn things around. But Devin Dampier had a career day, 18 of 33 for 259 yards. He also ran for 2 touchdowns. And then Wayshawn Parker ran for 100 yards. And then Bird Ficklin, the quarterback that torched Colorado, ran for 3 touchdowns. So Utah, they got pushed to the brink by this Kansas State team. So Kansas State, I mean, this is where it could be the ugliest game of the season for Colorado. And I know you're saying, like, how is that possible? But true dual threat quarterback in Avery Johnson, who I think he's more comfortable running with his legs than he is throwing this year. His year 2 to year 3, Avery Johnson is not what I was expecting. I thought he'd be more in the Heisman conversation, not like he's all right. But Joe Jackson, their running back, he ran for 293 yards, 3 touchdowns, 12.2 yards per carry against Utah. Keep in mind, Colorado could not do anything against Utah and has struggled. Like, Utah's defense contained Colorado to the max, and then Colorado's defense can't stop the run at all. So you have one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the country. You have a running back in Joe Jackson who is just, nails. And then they also gave this guy Antonio Martin, who he's a junior out of Atlanta, transfer from Southeast Louisiana, who hadn't played a lot this year, but they gave him 5 carries and he rushed for 89 yards and 18 yards per carry. So they had longs of everyone who got a carry had at least an 18-yard rush. And then the 3 guys who got more than 1 carry had longs of 58, 37, and 80. So I expect this Kansas State team to run all over Colorado. I don't know. Colorado is basically thrown in the towel in the season. You're starting Caden Salter, you're redshirting Julian Lewis. Like, you're not playing for anything. It's a disappointing situation to be in, but this game could get ugly. And this game, I think if you're Colorado, the one thing you're like looking forward to is like, or a Colorado fan, that I'd say is like, that probably means we're going to be changing coaches here or there. So that's pretty much the only thing to be excited for this game. I don't even know, like, keys to victory for Colorado would just simply be you have to out-duel Arizona State, Kansas State, which I don't think Colorado can do that. They're just not capable of putting up that many points. And I don't even think forcing turnovers matters because you forced 4 last week and you got 3 points off of it. So Colorado finds itself in a very fun situation, to say the least. And quite frankly, this is going to be a much needed ending to this season. Put a bow on what has been a disastrous season all around. Coach Prime's health, which is, I'm glad he's feeling better now. Colorado's talent evaluation was a disaster. Their coaching has been a disaster. This week just wraps that all up, and we could sort of just be excited about the offseason and all the transfer portal moves that Colorado is going to make and coaching moves that Colorado is going to make. So that's my take on the Kansas State game. I'm not expecting too much out of Colorado because I don't think they're expecting too much out of themselves. I feel like they've quit on the year. We'll just have to wait and see. So appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Oops.